So would you like to answer some questions?
Let's start with one.
Okay. So this is under the topic of negative beliefs or negative ideas. So I've got new technology now, okay? So a little tablet with the question on it.
Yes. This comes from?
Ustream.
All right.
What is your response to the statement, I don't believe in negative beliefs?
That's a negative belief. Because you're saying, I don't believe.
I don't believe in negative, oh, right.
Therefore, it's a negative belief statement. A little bit paradoxical, isn't it?
That's pretty interesting. You're so clever.
Am I? Just seems obvious.
And then the next question was, is there any relationship between a negative belief and a specific symptom or illness?
Yes, there can be, absolutely.
Would you like to give some examples of that?
Well, on an extremely simplistic level of illustration, you could say that someone that truly, truly believes that they are not worthy of living could in fact allow themselves to contract a disease that will wither them away and let them die. It can be that simple. There's usually a little bit more complexity to it than that, a fewer different kinds of ideas and issues mixed in, but that's a simple illustration.
What about when there's like genetic issues that are along family lines?
Well, again, it depends on why that might have been chosen. Because again, it can be about the person just simply saying, I want to choose a life that has an automatic switch that will shut off at a certain time. I'll do that genetically. That's just one of the easiest things to do. I'll pick a family line that I know that that's likely to happen in. And it can also be for a variety of other reasons. I will choose this because what I will bring into this life by having this particular genetic condition will be of great value not only for me to learn certain things, but of great value for the family that I'm born into to learn certain things that we've agreed I will help teach them. You have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
That's actually a really beautiful part of the idea that sometimes people take on illnesses for the benefit of the other people in their lives.
Yes.
It may not be completely apparent.
Correct.
It takes everyone on a specific journey.
Yes.
And it becomes tempting, I think, at times for when you apply these ideas to think that, oh, because you're responsible for everything that happens to you, in a sense.
Well, you are, but that's not a negative statement.
Right. The idea that anytime you see someone that's ill, that must mean there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. Remember, not all limitations are inherently negative.
So it's always better to approach any person's illness with the idea that you don't really know what the purpose of it is.
Correct. And you can also ask the question, if you've been experiencing that for a while, as to what might I not have had a chance to experience? How different might I have been had I not had this experience with that person or with myself? That will usually illuminate to some degree the reason for that experience, because you start to realize I may not have learned this or that or gone in that direction had that not occurred. Then you can start to retroactively understand why it may have occurred.
So it's still always a personal journey in terms of understanding why illness may be part of an experience that you're having. And it's really important or helpful if other people don't assume that they know
it is helpful
why this is happening.
Yes, it is helpful, because then at least you're starting with a relatively clean slate, and also remembering the aphorism that we have shared with all of you, which is, it's not about what happens. It's about what you do with what happens.
Right. And we all choose our own types of challenges where we have to apply that.
Yes.
We may not prefer what's happening, but
there's always a way to use it in a way that you do prefer.
So it always becomes a vehicle for learning how to transform a negative perspective into a positive one.
Or at the very least, a vehicle for recognizing the difference more clearly between the two.
Right. Oh, that's right, because discernment is such a big part of the education process.
Yes, it is.
So then this other question on negativity was, how can one possibly accept or define the negative, that which we absolutely do not prefer, as equally valid as the positive, and at the same time not condone it?
The idea, again, first and foremost, again, is to understand, just like we said, not all limitations are negative, not all negativity is negative. In other words, there might be things that are created through the mechanism of negativity. Remember that when we say positive and negative, these are not value judgments. These are just descriptions of a mechanism and an energy. Positive is that which connects, integrates, expands. Negative is simply that which disconnects and, in a sense, diminishes, shrinks, isolates. These concepts in and of themselves are not automatically one thing or another. They're neutral components of these ideas. Therefore, again, you can even use a negative mechanism to create a positive effect, just as you do impose certain limitations on yourself to create the experience of physical reality. And without those limitations, without those borders, without those definitions, without those guidelines, without those agreements, you would not be able to have that experience. So in a sense, imposing limitations of that type on yourself is a negative act, because you are creating a sensation to some degree of disconnection from the greater self, but you're using it for a positive purpose. It's important to understand that what we're describing when we say positive and negative are not themselves inherently, totally positive or negative either. That's why it's so important to understand, going back to the first question, is that as you expand your consciousness, you have to become more aware of existence. And as you become more aware of existence, you automatically become more aware of the positive and the negative, and of course the balance point in the center, being that existence is not a duality, it's a trinity. And therefore, in becoming more aware of the negative as well as the positive, you're just becoming more aware of more probabilities, and it's up to you to decide how to use them. Because you can use a positive idea in a negative way, you can use a negative idea in a positive way, and that's why you have the symbol called the yin-yang, where you have black on one side with a little bit of white, and white on the other side with a little bit of black, showing you that no matter how much you might be on one side or the other, there is always the opportunity to recognize that a little bit of the opposite exists in each. So you can never become unaware of one side if you're actually expanding your consciousness. The only way you can become unaware consciously of one side is to actually be negative and diminish your ability to perceive existence. So when someone says, I don't believe in negative beliefs, they're actually diminishing their ability to experience part of creation, which gives them more choices. Because it's not automatic that you have to use a negative mechanism in a negative way. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that actually, the whole idea of you have to be creative in working with energy.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
And negative energy can be transmuted. It can be worked with in a positive way. But
it's like saying, I have a very sharp tool. Now, I can do some good sculpting with that. I can also probably chop my finger off with it. The tool is neutral. Depends on what you do with it. So please understand this in a deeper way. And we thank the people that have asked these questions, because it allows us the opportunity to open the door to explain this in a deeper way. Negative mechanically, negative energetically, positive mechanically, positive energetically is not automatically assumed to have to be used in one way or the other. It's just the tools in the kit, along with the neutral third balance point. They're just tools in the kit of existence. It doesn't mean anything to become more aware of them. It just depends on how you use them when you do become more aware of them. All right?
yes.
And so, if you would now like to refresh yourselves, please take your nourishment break and we will resume this transmission afterwards. Thank you.